So how are things going in Italy?
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's a pretty cruisy lifestyle, I'd say. It's an um, easy sort of place to fit in. Been here for nearly 2 years now. So obviously I came over last year. I was signed at Benetton Treviso last year for a season, and then there was actually three boys that were at Treviso last year that weren't getting much game time. So we signed at Zebre. It was myself, an Italian guy, and a South African guy. And we all signed at Zebre. So I've obviously been at Zebre for this year. So yeah, this is my second year in Italy, and rugby is one thing. Obviously, it'd be awesome to have played a few more games for Zebre, but there's a lot of other things it offers, and I've just been trying to enjoy the lifestyle over here, and yeah, it's been a nice place to live, really. So I can't complain too much.
Yeah, good stuff. Is there anything different between home, like lifestyle wise?
Um, I don't know. I think the Italians are a lot more laid back. Like sometimes it takes a little bit of extra time to get things done here, but it's kind of a nice lifestyle. Like the training days are quite long because they like to have lots of meetings and have lots of discussions and talk a lot about things in the meetings or whatever. Like the head coach here at Zebre is a guy who likes to have players' input and making sure that the boys are feeling happy, and if there's anything that we want to discuss or put their say in, he's open to that. So it's all like he's got a philosophy almost like everyone has to have an input. Like if you don't say anything, then you're not really valued. So now the lifestyle has been nice. It's as I said, yeah, there's a lot more laid back and chilled than back home. I feel like back home sometimes you're in a bit of a rat race to get things done, and a bit more of a stressed lifestyle. But no, it's been nice to live here. And the other positive, I guess, is in these like rugby networks and environments, you meet a lot of people from like other walks of life and stuff. So, like for example, I'm living here with a South African guy at home at the moment. Been with him all year, and it's nice just to sort of mix and mingle with other people from different backgrounds and cultures and stuff. So no, it's been good. It's offered a lot. So yeah, I'm really happy here.
Nice one. Yeah, chatting to someone who played there before in Italy, they were saying how it's nice. It's always sunny there, and it's chill, good food.
Yeah,
It's a good spot to be.
yeah, you got to look after yourself because I think it's pretty hard to keep the skin folds down here. To say, I reckon I put on a few cakes since I've been here, but no, the food's unreal, and like everything about the culture is pretty special. So like for example, my family's here at the moment, so I'm taking them out to a few good spots to eat, and I just said, look, you just can't worry about keeping your body weight down for the next few weeks because there's a lot of carbs and there's a lot of like fatty foods. But yeah, it's awesome. It offers a lot that back home that's not necessarily does. So no, it's good. It's nice. It's a good spot.
Yeah, and just looking at your last name, are you Italian qualified or?
Yeah. So that was a big reason, or I guess, to get over here was because my old man is both his parents are Italian. So mum's Aussie, dad's Italian. So yeah, I think I'm lucky. I think I'm the last one. If I don't marry an Italian or have kids with an Italian, then I'll be the last to get the passport. So yeah, making use of it, I guess, and I'm pretty lucky to be a dual citizen. So yeah.
Nice one. And do you speak any of the language?
Yeah, it's not bad actually. I'm getting there. So I think I'm not probably that good, but when I go out with a few of the boys for lunches or coffees or whatever, they're quite impressed. I understand just about everything. I reckon I'm pretty fluent in comprehension and stuff, reading and like listening to people speak, or if I have a conversation with them, I can understand just about everything. But sometimes it's a bit of a challenge to get the point across because there's so many rules with the language. But I probably could be doing a little bit more study. But I think I'm quite good in the space of 2 years. I think I'm better than what I thought I would be. So I think it's just that breaking that barrier, like putting yourself out there and not being too shy, just having a crack when you can. And I think it helps if you live with an Italian, because I've lived with a South African guy, so I hear more Afrikaans than I do Italian, to be honest. So, but yeah, I think you just got to put yourself in that environment to speak the language. because at training, for example, like there's half the squad is foreign, so like they'll speak mostly in English. Actually, the head coach will speak mostly in English here, and he'll speak Italian second, and most of the Italian boys can all speak English. So yeah, it's sort of more English driven, which is a little bit rare for Italians, I'd say, because they're a bit like Italian first, very patriotic, but quite lucky here for it to be a lot of English being spoken, so it's easier for the foreign boys.
Nice one. And then do you have like lessons in this club or for the foreign boys, like, or to learn it?
Nah, not really. There is a few boys that do the odd lesson with one of the lads' mum. She's South African, but she lived here for a long time, so a few of them are doing lessons with her. Mostly the South African boys, but nah, the club doesn't really offer lessons. I think last year at the club I was at, there was a lot of us that did at Treviso. They offered lessons, so a lot of the foreign boys were in there with the foreign coaches doing lessons. It was funny. Like some of the South African boys, like there was this one guy. His name is Bubus Andres Kotsia. He was a fullback last year for Treviso, and he just really struggled. Like he struggled with English as it was. Not struggled, but like some words he just forget. But when he was in there in the Italian lessons, like we had a good laugh. Like he really struggled to get the pronunciations right. So there was an Irish guy as well, Jim Maloney. I don't know if you know him, but he's a S&C. He was at Connacht for years.
Yeah.
He's at Treviso. It's funny, like when he has a crack, so I can't say anything bad about him, but the pronunciation's real funny. Like you have a good laugh. He knows it as well, so it's good fun.
Yeah, good stuff. And how did you find your way over to Italy a couple of years ago? Like, how did you first get over to Benetton?
Yeah, so I actually stopped playing footy for 2 years at the back end of school. Got back into it when I was a little bit older, 19, 20. And then I just had a couple of good seasons. It was sort of a time where I had to decide whether I was going to continue with footy or, whether if I'd got back into it, whether I'd still be where I was before I left off. So I got back into it again, and I think I was quite lucky, like the situation that I was put in. I played Brumbies Academy, and then I played some first grade rugby back home, just club footy, which was obviously I was working on the side. Like I was working at a restaurant, and I was doing some uni. I was studying psychology at the time. I was a barista as well. I was working for my parents in their coffee shop. So I was quite busy. And I was just playing some first grade footy back home. And I was lucky. I was in a team where it was we were in a very, very strong team. Like our team, we had Mac Hansen, who's at Connacht now. He was our fullback. Isaac Fines, our 9 was at the Brumbies, now he's at the Western Force. Matt Kiddo was playing 10. I was playing 10. Gitz was playing 12. Our 13 is now in Japan playing. Our winger, Solomon Okada, is now at Exeter Chiefs. Our 13, James Dargaville, he's now finished footy, but it was insane. Like our backline was like a Super Rugby backline, and I was just lucky to be in that environment. And I feel like a couple of the boys, particularly like Dargs and Gitz, took me under their wing a lot. So Gitz was he finished in Japan at Suntory, and he was at the stage of his career where he wasn't sure whether he was going to go again. So he came back to Australia with his family after finishing up in Japan, played a bit of club footy at the club that I was at just to get back into it again. And then he had signed with LA Giltinis. And obviously at the time I was, getting back into footy again and trying to enjoy it again and get the love back for the game again and see where it would take me. And he spent a lot of time with me outside of the 2 trainings that we had a week there, and obviously game day. And we would gym a lot. We would do a lot of extra skills together. He took me under his wing, and then from there, just playing some good footy back home. And then my agent just said that Treviso wanted to offer me a contract off the back of that. So I think it was quite a special time for me as well, because at that stage I was going through a bit of a tough time mentally. It was probably one of the toughest times I've been through. And I probably wasn't entirely honest with my agent at the time. Like everything was rugby based. I was just telling him everything rugby based, but I probably should have said a little bit more about how I was feeling at the time, and that I think a change in places, or whether it be overseas somewhere, would be good for me, just to have something to work towards and start afresh, sort of. So I think that was a really, really positive thing for me to get over to this side of the world, and it's been the best thing for me, really. And haven't looked back ever since. Like I said to my family this week, I said, obviously they've flown over from Australia to visit me. I haven't seen them for a year, but I said, like, living over here, rugby's one thing, and it's been awesome to play at this level, and for what rugby's offered me. But from the lifestyle point of view, it's been awesome. Like, I've loved every minute of it, and just the people you meet, and every day going into training, like, it's good for you physically and mentally, and having things to work towards. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying it. That's sort of the story. That's how it's led me to here and where I am now. So yeah, it's amazing. Like, you never know. Looking back 2 or 3 years ago, I probably thought I probably wouldn't play footy again, and now here I am sitting here, looking back, and yeah, thinking how special the road has been. And yeah, just trying to sometimes I try and speak to people out there that may be thinking everything's too hard, or because that's exactly how I felt. And just trying to sort of keep them with an open mind, and just making sure that they speak about how they're feeling, because when you're going through what you're going through, sometimes everything seems too much, and you think you're the only one, and you don't want to speak about it because of judgment or whatever. But at the end of the day, you look back, and when you know you've overcome that, it's a pretty good feeling. And yeah, it's something that I think often about.
Brilliant. Yeah, great stuff. And when you were saying that you're struggling mentally, was it kind of something around rugby that was bringing you down, or outside of it?
No, it was sort of more just life. There was a few things going on. Like, I'd been in a relationship with a girl, and that came to an end, and that was one thing. But then I was sort of going through a personal setback with, like, anxiety, depression, and whatnot. So that was sort of a stage in my life where I was focusing on myself and trying to rebuild myself and what I've left behind. But yeah, coming over here had been awesome for me, just to have something to work towards. And obviously that time back home before I came over, I'd spent a lot of time rebuilding and speaking to people, and whatever it may be, seeking help. And yeah, just looking back, using all those tools. Like today, for example, and this day in life over here, living in Italy, I use a lot of tools each and every day that I'd learn about myself that I didn't know before. And just trying to replicate those things into my daily life, just to maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Brilliant. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned in a few podcasts ago, like, I similarly went through like a tough time, and what I found, yeah, like when you learn a few tools about a few things at work, or I don't know, just from my own experience. Like, I remember being a rough place, and what you're saying there, like, you kind of start to learn things that when you do them every day, they help you have a good day. And then when you have a good day and you just keep patching them together, you just kind of keep having good days.
Yeah. It's funny how it works, eh? It's and you only learn that through experience. And I'm still young, but I'm, as hard as it was, I still look back and I say, oh wow, like, I've learned so much about myself, as bad as it was. And I wouldn't want anyone to go through what I went through, but you learn so much about yourself, and you just are able to do things in your daily life, like you said, that just keep you in a good place. Like, there's a few stories I could tell. Like, last year at Treviso, I was on top of the world, thought everything was good. Obviously, being a young lad, going out for a few nights with the boys, probably wasn't looking after myself, recovering well enough, going out a few late nights. Like, we had a preseason thing, and we had a week off, whatever. And I went off with a few of the lads into, like, this town, 30-minute drive from Treviso. It was a bit of a party town. And I got stuck into a few drinks, as all young boys do. And long story short, I returned back home, and I was in a terrible mental state. Like, I couldn't go to training for 2 weeks, couldn't get out of bed. And that was just a wake-up call, just to remind myself, you got to look after yourself, because you can't have these things laying over your head. And that probably didn't help me at that time at Treviso as well, because I'd missed 2 weeks of pre-season, and I hadn't been at training for 2 weeks, and I was just at home, like, I couldn't leave the house. So yeah, as I said, like, these things that you go through, you learn so much about yourself. But yeah, it's just the way it goes. Like, some things work for some people, some things don't work for some people. You just got to find that balance, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Of fair play at your age, like having that self-awareness, because it's something, I don't know, like you say, a lot of young people drink. When I was a young lad, used to drink so much, but looking back, like it would give me anxiety, or it gives like hangovers, like for a day or two. You
Yeah,
know, we kind of brush it off. We'll say, oh, the fear, or oh, this, that, the other, or oh, but it's like you're just uneasy for a couple of days, and then yeah, like you say, I don't know, all of a sudden it can really creep up on you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what happened. Like I thought everything was all good, um, but you just got to remember what works for you. And like, it's taught me a lot about like just being comfortable in your own skin and not getting peer pressured into anything. Like obviously in the rugby world, boys have a stereotype of drinking a lot or partying a lot or whatever. And you go out with these boys. Like I go out most weekends with the boys, but I'm just happy enough to do my own thing, like drink a Coke Zero or a water or whatever it is. The other lads are smashing a few tins back, but they all respect me for that, and I still have a good time. And it's just breaking that barrier, I think. Like just being comfortable in your own skin, and at the end of the day, like the boys respect you for that, and you respect them for that, and you know, you just do you, and whatever works for you is what matters most. So yeah, it's funny how it works.
Yeah, unreal, fair play. So do you not really take drink anymore, or?
No, I haven't had a sip for 2 years now, or since that episode. So that was what, 2 years ago? Yeah, almost 2 years ago. So it's been a bit of a long stint.
Fair play. No, that's brilliant. I don't really drink myself anymore. I'll have like one beer every 4 or 5 months probably. But
Yeah,
because like that, I was just like, this isn't really working for me anymore. I'm just not, the plus and the minuses, it's just not doing it for me anymore. But that was towards the end of when I was playing. I stopped, and I kind of was a bit older. I was probably 27 or so, and I was like, I don't care what anyone thinks. But it can be challenging sometimes because I know when I was younger, you'd look at people who didn't drink. Maybe Ireland, the culture is a bit different, but when I was younger, I would have looked at people who didn't drink, and
yeah,
I don't know, been a certain way about thought certain things, which is wrong, but that's the way it is kind of sometimes in these cultures, isn't it?
yeah. It's funny you say that, because especially for us, like Aussie and Irish, New Zealand, like big drinking culture. And I have a lot of mates that are Irish, because I went to school there for a year back in the day, and and I try to like visit when I can. Like I love that place, and Dublin's like feels like home for me because I know so many people there. I went back last year to visit a few boys, and like are going out like to their houses or to a few bars or clubs in town, and they just couldn't get their head around it. Like they just couldn't understand that I couldn't have one with them, and it was like it was crazy. But I just said, yeah, it's just me. Like, yeah, I'd rather not. And they, at the end of the day, they respected me for that, and I'd still go out and do everything they did, and just have a Coke Zero or whatever. So for all the boys here, like have jokes that go out and drink maybe 4 or 5 Coke Zeros, is probably just as bad as a beer, but it works for me. So it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah. And where did you go to school in Ireland?
So when I was 14, 15, so dad moved over there for a year. He was coaching Leinster at the time, forwards coach, scrum coach. That was 2014, 15, no, 2014. He went over there, did a season, and then 2015, the family moved over. Me, my 2 sisters, and mum. So he was there for 2 years. I was there for a year, and I went to school. I was at Blackrock for a year. That was awesome. I loved it. Obviously, I was a lot younger then, but I could live there easily. Like I went back last year, and I 100% could live in Ireland. I love the place. It's the people, and everyone's so nice and happy there. Yeah, it's a good vibe. I like it.
Yeah, they love the rugby there in Blackrock as well.
Man, it's huge, eh? Like I couldn't get over it. Like when I was that young, coming from Australia, like it's like a first 15 set up, and I was 15 in the JC, to the junior cup team, training like every day. Like in lunchtime, we were doing gym sessions. Like teachers were giving us like the all clear to eat during during class, because we were in the J's or JC. It was, and all the other boys were there, like looking at us, like would be when we'd be late to class, or whatever, or we had training, or it was nuts, man. Like it's another world, eh? Yeah, but
Yeah,
it was an awesome experience. That was awesome. It definitely, you can see why Irish rugby is so successful. Like they're just getting used to it from such a young age. And then by the time they finish school, like they know what it's like being in a pro setup. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's nearly a bit daft how professional some of the schools, mainly in Dublin, are. But yeah, the boys come out of them like literally like professionals.
Yeah, like there was like a full-time scrum coach, like there was a full-time S&C guy in the gym there. Boys were like lifting huge tin when they were 15. It was nuts. It was crazy, like on a meal plans. Like I remember we had this winger, Sean Maloney. I don't know if he's still playing footy now, but he was a winger, and the coach decided that he'd be a good hooker. So within like preseason, from one season to the next, he put on like over 15 kilos. It was crazy. It was nuts. Yeah, it was. That's another world, but you can see why they're so successful. Like, yeah, just the way that they do things. Like back home, obviously, like the first 15 is a big thing at some big rugby schools in Sydney, in Queensland, but the training that they do for a first 15 wouldn't be as much as they do for a junior cup team back in Ireland. It's crazy.
So what would it be like in Australia? And did you then go your school in Australia? Did you go to like a big rugby school then when you went back?
Yeah, so I was at Morris Canberra. It's a private school, but it wasn't a big rugby school compared to like the ones in Sydney and stuff. But when I was 16, I played in the first team for Morris College Canberra. So I still had year 11 and year 12. So I was one of the youngest boys to do that. And then from the back of that, I was offered a scholarship to go to a big rugby school in Sydney, Newington College. It's one of the biggest footy schools in Australia, and they offer like a lot of sporting scholarships. And every year they have like a relationship with like this Tongan school in Tonga. So they would bring 3 Tongan boys back every year to play in the first 15 team, and they would learn English and obviously go to a good school all paid for. So I boarded there for a year. And that's sort of where my first experience of like mental health was my first setback. Just yeah, it was crazy. Like I went there for footy, obviously, and to see where it would take me. And I was 17, and then yeah, just experienced the opposite. It was like went through a whole eating disorder thing, like lost 20 and 25 kilos, and I was there meant to be playing footy for the first team. So it got to a point where I was like, wasn't telling anyone about how I felt at the time. And then I just remember ringing my family saying, you got to come pick me up. I'm no good. And I remember like driving back, mum picked me up from Sydney, and I chucked all my stuff in the car, heading back home at the end of, at the end of year 11. So before year 12 started, went back, and I was in the car, and I like was having this panic attack. Like, it was my first experience of like having a panic attack, and I just said to my mum, "You got to take me to the hospital. Like I think I'm having a heart attack. I can't breathe." Like it was pretty scary, and she said, "Okay." So we went to the hospital, did all the tests, and the doctor just said, "Like, mate, it's just anxiety. You're just having a panic attack." So that was my first experience of anxiety, and from then it was sort of just like, okay, I need to focus on myself now. So from then on, for the next 2 years, I just didn't play rugby, and I was just focusing on me. And obviously, it was a tough time because I went back to Australia, back to Canberra, sorry. And boys my age were progressing through the ranks, like signing contracts at the Brumbies and playing Australian schoolboys, whatever. And I was playing with all these boys before, and it's pretty tough, like going into school, and I would from school drive back home, but I would see all the boys going off to the first team, going to train, or I was seeing all the boys progress through the ranks, signing contracts and stuff in the franchises in Australia. So it was tough, but I think it made me like pretty hungry to get it all back. So then, lucky enough, 2 years later, I started to play footy again. I started to feel like myself again, and then just lucky enough that I caught up to where I left off at.
Yeah, 100%. And fair play for asking for help. How long were you kind of like struggling for before you said it to your mum?
Probably a year. And probably, to be honest, like if I didn't say anything, probably like I'm lucky that I have like a pretty special family, like pretty close family. And if it wasn't for them, like who knows what would have happened. I'm pretty lucky that they sort of were there to see how I was actually going, and that they wanted to help me, because sometimes, like as young men, you don't want to speak about how you're feeling and you want to hide everything. So, which was what I was doing. So yeah, just lucky that they sort of helped me through it. And yeah, like just that's a tough one, because when you're going through what you're going through, you just don't want to talk about it, because you think of you're afraid of judgment, or you're afraid of what people think, or you think you're the only one going through it, which is probably the big one. You think you're the only one going through what you're going through, whereas when you start reading stories and speaking to people, and yeah, you just realize that there are a lot of people out there going through a similar thing or something that they can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. You really do, you hear that, but you really do think you're the only one, and you
Yeah,
think it's that you're, from my experience, you think that you're very weak, and that you're kind of, my experience, that I was weak or kind of useless, and then it's like, but when you take a step back, and I don't know, now that I'm in a good place, I kind of understand that it's so common, like it's so common, and
yeah,
then you read the percentages, like when I read then the percentages of the amount of people that will suffer from a depressive period in their life, or people who will suffer from anxiety, like the percentages are huge.
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, yeah, 100%. And you don't realize that until you start that process. And even like with footy, like there's been quite a lot of people that that I've become close with in the last couple of years, and just for them, even telling me a little bit about their stories and opening up a bit about them. And it's quite I don't know, not special, but it's quite of a surreal feeling when you speak to these boys and you get one sort of view, or you see them in one way, but when they start talking to you about things that have happened for them in the past, or what they'd go through on a daily basis, like it's like, okay, brings it back to, and I remember when I was going through what I was going through that 2 weeks last year when I was in Treviso, and I was not in a good way. Like a couple of the lads that I'm really close with now, and today I speak to like daily, they were the ones there for me, and they were the ones that I was there for them sometimes last year. Like there was one of the lads who was going through a bit of a tough time last year, and I helped him a lot last year when he was going through a bit of a tough patch. So yeah, just looking out for each other, and having each other's backs, and just yeah, it's you just gain that respect, I think, when you open up a little bit about your story.
100%. It's so courageous, and fair play to you. And one thing that I find, yeah, when you take the first step to actually talking about how you're feeling, then once again, I keep saying from my experience, because I don't know what it's like for other people, but for me, then if I'm dropped from 100% to 98%, I'm able to say that. So like if someone says like, how are you getting on, Brian? It's like, just not feeling the best today. Just, I think I'm a bit run down or something, like I can just like talk openly about that. And then that
Yeah,
helps. Or like, I could say like, I'm a bit stressed. Like I've been I was working, and then I was running around, and then I was doing this, and then I've this happening. And I'm just I was a little bit stressed today. Like you can just talk about, just when you drop down a couple of percent, you just talk about it, and it helps, versus not, and then you drop down another 10%, and then 20%, and then 30, and then all of a sudden, like you say, you're in a dark place.
100%. Exactly, 100%. And sometimes you don't need to. Like for me, I didn't have to go into details about what I was experiencing, but just to say, okay, I'm not that well, or can we go up? Can we catch up for a coffee, or can I come over to your house, or can you come over to my house and just have a talk about training this week? Or doesn't have to be necessarily about something in particular, but just to have that. I think social connectedness is a big one for me. Connecting with the people, and just having a chat about anything really is sometimes really, really good, and that can help a lot.
100%. Social connection is so important, I think.
Yeah,
And you see that, like, we probably just take it for granted growing up playing in teams. Like, you're always just at training, and you're just always with the lads. And then if you have a period away from it, you realize it's like, geez, it gives you so much, just
Yeah,
simple, just having bit of chat or whatever.
100%. And like you hear stories about boys that maybe after school or after rugby, when rugby's finished, that stage of what they're going to do next can be a little bit of a like shock, just because they've been doing the same thing, seeing the same boys, been around people for so long, for so many years, each and every day, and then it's like, oh, I'm by myself now. Like, what am I going to do with myself? That's a big stage where sometimes people struggle a little bit, I think. What I've seen, yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I think is huge, and you kind of might have touched on it, but is purpose. So when I was struggling, and then it sounds similar to you, I was kind of like working through it and kind of learning about it and learning about how to kind of get myself back to being myself. And I spoke about it on this podcast. I just started reading. I didn't actually kind of say it at the time to others that I was struggling, but I started piecing it back together myself. I started working out. I was able to, after an injury, get back into the gym. I started reading a lot. I started learning about psychology, philosophy, all this stuff. But then when I was kind of getting out of that and I was really feeling myself again, I got back into like coaching and playing, and that gave me like so much purpose again. Whereas when I didn't have that, I was just like floating about. And and it's sometimes just very aware of now that it's very important to have just purpose about your day, your life. And as players, as people involved in sport, you just have that anyway. But it was when I fell out of the sport because I was injured and I was kind of not able to play, that's when I really hit me. I realized the importance of it, just always having a purpose.
Yeah, that's huge, and that's something that I find as well. And even like on a daily basis, sometimes I try and like have routine, or get up early, do something, whether it be like a bit of meditation or whatever. I enjoy like a coffee just with myself, sort of put the technology away, like, and start the day in a good place. And when you don't do that, say like, okay, you're going to set your alarm maybe 20 minutes more, or you put it on snooze, and you feel like you're rushing a little bit, then it's like, okay, I haven't started the day well. And then it's like, you feel like your drive or your purpose is a little bit is missing somewhere. So it's like, and I've seen that as well. It's easy to fall into, but if you have that drive and that purpose every day, whether it be, going to training every day but focusing on this and this, or like before training, I try and like write 3 things I'm grateful for down, and 3 things or 1 or 2 things that I'm going to focus on today, and just trying to like focus on those things rather than having like a million things in your head. It just works for me. And I find like when you do those things consistently, it can be really, really, really good for you.
Man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. I speak about all those in the book, about like, because there's just things that work for me as well, and things I wish I knew when I was younger, when I was 16, 18, and when I talk to young players now, and when I'm doing talks around clubs and schools, it's like, yeah, meditation, so key. And in the morning, having a bit of a morning routine and giving yourself a bit of time, simply just giving yourself a bit of time in the morning and not rushing. Because when I did it for 20, I don't know, for 3 odd years, I just wake up just before I had to leave the house.
Yeah.
And yeah, then you're just always behind the 8 ball. You're always rushing. You're always, I don't know,
Like
going.
something's missing.
But when you give yourself time to just be with yourself, just take it easy, and you wake up that half hour earlier, it makes life easier.
Yeah. And I saw that you enjoy like a cold shower in the morning as well. And maybe that works for you, obviously, which is awesome. And then you just feel like you're, like you said, you're ahead of the 8 ball, and you feel like you started the day in the right way.
Yeah. 100%. And how, chat to me about the rugby store. You do I see you're gone on loan
Yeah.
to?
Yeah. So I've obviously only played 3 games for Zebra this season, which has been awesome. Like, loved every minute of it. But sometimes it can be a little bit hard, training each and every day, and obviously because we have such a big squad number here. Like I think there's 56 of us, and there's like 5 fly halves, and maybe more than 5'12". So there's a lot of boys like that are getting picked above me this season. So yeah, I've only played a few games this year for Zebre, but I just had a chat with the club and I just said, would I be able to go on loan or whatever it may be for, not on loan, but just to get some minutes with a top. So like the way it works here is like all the boys at these franchises, whether it be Treviso or Zebre, they're pretty much just fully contracted to the club. So they don't want boys going in and out of other teams. Whereas back home, like I'm used to, like if you don't play for your Super Rugby team, you go and play club footy on the weekend just to like get some game time. So when you play, you're ready and you're fit or whatever. So I just said, like, do you think I could go to a team and get some minutes? And they said, probably not, but we'll have a chat, whatever. So, but long story short, they were happy with me to do it. So I've gone to this top 10 team, which is like it's a top competition in Italy, and there's 10 teams. And I've gone to this one team, which is just up the road. It's actually the head coach is Argentinian, and there's like 26 Argentinian players. So like most of the meetings are done in Spanish, and it's crazy. There's only like 6 Italian lads in there, but it's been good just to get some game time, and I feel like I'm playing good footy there. So I'm only contracted to Zebre until the end of the season. So at the moment, I'm still trying to find where I'll be next year. So busy with that, but yeah, just see where it takes me. Try not to get too stressed, but I'd ideally like to stay over this side of the world. I'm enjoying like the lifestyle over here, and home's always going to be there. And if something popped up back home, then maybe I'd consider it. But ideally, I'd like to stay in Europe somewhere, or the UK if something popped up. So we'll just try and see where it takes me. Just try and play some good footy for this team. And if I play some more footy for Zebre this year, then that'll be awesome. But if not, that's okay. Sometimes it just doesn't work out at a particular place in any time. So, but what I've found, like in this, which has become quite evident to me in this last couple of weeks playing with this new team, is just like how important confidence is. Like, I feel like at this team, like you feel like I'm valued and by the coaches and the boys there, and that I feel like I'm a part of the team and bringing something to the team. So I feel confident, like, and when you're confident, like if you're happy off the field and you're confident at training, or it's so easy to play well. But if you feel like you get one game here and then you don't play for 5 weeks, and then you get another game off the bench and then you don't play, it's like, it's a different feeling. And just confidence is just I think a massive factor is what I feel like. If you're confident in yourself and you're feeling good, it's so much easier to play well and just do your thing. I reckon it's that's what I found.
Man, 100%. It's like, it's night and day, isn't it? When you're like in a team regularly, whatever the level, but when you're in a team regularly and you know that the coaches back you, and that they trust you and you're comfortable, and then you get confidence from that to kind of express yourself. It's night and day versus if you're going in, and I've been there too, you go in and it's like, I need to make something happen. I need to make something happen. And like, you're kind of like doubting yourself, and it's night and day how you perform.
Crazy. And like, especially when you're in a situation like me where you've only played a few games for the club, and there's a few other boys are competing in your position, and you're thinking, oh, that pass didn't go to hand at training today, and you're thinking about that maybe that wrong read you made in defence, and you're thinking, and you're comparing yourself to the other boys, and they've made a couple of errors, but it's easy for the coaches not to pick me because I made these errors. And it's just like focusing on sometimes looking at those things and just thinking too much about the errors. Whereas like, I feel like if you're confident and just acknowledging, okay, things may go wrong in a game or like training, as I've seen like with your things that you put up there. And that's something that I've tried to implement in the last sort of few months with my footy, is just like, okay, things are going to happen. That's a non-negotiable. Like, there's going to be always something that goes wrong in a game, but just like being able to just put that to bed and just like focus on the next thing is huge. And just when you have that confidence in yourself, not from yourself, but also from people around you, it's so much easier to do that. But that just comes from, you got to find that in you somewhere. Like, and for me, that just comes from like if I go to training, I'll just focus on one or two things. I'll just go bang, bang. Like I'll write these things down in my book in a team meeting or whatever, focus on these things, write a few things that I'm grateful for down in a day. I'm in a good place already. And then just trying to go out and just don't think about anything too much. Just do what you do and try and do it as well as you can.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
And 100%, like I know this is easier said than done, but you have to just go out and try and be the best version of you and give it a lash and accept that, look, some balls aren't going to go to hand. You accept that before you even go out there, but you have to give it a go and trust yourself and back yourself, because there's nothing worse than if you just play really cautiously and conservatively and don't do anything, then you walk off the field and then you end up not getting in the team, obviously, because you didn't do anything, because you're just playing a 2 out of 10, hoping to not make mistakes. And then you don't get picked and you're looking at yourself going, I'm way better than this. And you are way better than this. So you kind of just have to give it a lash. And I love your outlook, what you were saying there. You're like, first up, you're like, I played 3 games, which is sick, because it is. Like, you playing 3 games at that level is sick. Like, you know, and it's not like, oh, I didn't play 7 games or whatever. It's like, I did play 3. And then seeing where the road takes you. Like, I think that's so important, to just be like, look, we'll see where this journey goes. Whereas a lot of people, I feel, just get stressed so much. It's like, will I get a contract next year? Will I get it? Like, it'll all work out, you know, just.
Yeah. Only control the controllables. And that's something that I've learned from being around boys, older boys especially, who may have been quite successful in footy or played a lot of games and a bit older than me. It's just like, control the controllables. Like, sometimes I may have been a little bit down, whatever, at training, because I didn't think I trained well, and boys will come up to me and be like, mate, like, I thought you trained okay. Like, you think you're overthinking it. Like, just control the controllables. Like, don't think about like external factors, and don't go over what you've gone over, because like, for me, I didn't train well today, but the next session's a new session, and like, just put it to bed. Like, don't think about it too much. Just control what you can control is a huge one. But for me, it's just like, when I train my best and when I play my best, it's not that you don't care, because you train so, you know, in the back of your mind that you've trained so hard and you've given everything so much in that year or up to that point in time. Like, it's not that you don't care, because you care so much. But when you're out there, just don't think about anything too much. Just do you. Like, you're obviously there for a reason, and like, because of your ability, but just don't think about anything too much. Just like, be in the moment and just like let everything happen as it happens is what works for me. Not
100%.
overthinking. Yeah. And that's what works for me, I think, is just not overthinking anything too much, and just when you're out there, just like being in the moment and letting yourself do what you do best.
100%, you're spot on. And another one, it's interesting you say there that in Italy they're not as keen for lads to play down, but like in Ireland, the provincial players who are in academies or contracted by the provincial teams would always play down. So like, you know, you only playing say 2 games or 3 games because you're say not in the team at the weekend. I think it's just it hurts your development. So like, I remember when I was younger, say your early 20s, there were lads that would play 12 games in the All Ireland League with us and then play 3 games with Leinster. Do you get me? So like, 5 weeks in a row they're with us, then they get pulled up for 1 game, but then they're back with us. And it's huge for your development to just be playing all the time. So like, that's unreal from you to just say, hey, I just need to play a bit of rugby here. And you know, it's not about the level to an extent, you know?
100%. And it's definitely not about the level, because like, yeah, it's strange. Like you said, like back home, even we would have like the club I was at, we'd have like Wallabies coming back. Like, I mean, we had like Pete Samu and like Brumbies boys coming back each and every week if they weren't getting picked for the Brumbies, like playing for us. And then just like, it's crazy. Like the last 2 years, I was having a laugh with my mate the other day who's been injured. I live with him. Is a fullback for Zebra, and just having a laugh with him, saying like, mate, I've got so many caps for like the 24th man. Like, like in the last 2 seasons, I've gone on that many like 24th man trips. It's ridiculous, and like, yes, it's awesome to experience, you know, going on a trip with the lads, and you know, like last year, I remember I was lucky enough this year at Zebra to play against Ulster away. That was the coolest thing ever. But last year at Trevisa, I think round 1 or round 2, we we played Ulster away and I was 24th man, and I just like, it was the best thing ever. Like, not playing was awesome, but you're just thinking like, it's awesome being here and experiencing this, but being on the field would be amazing. And I was lucky enough to do it this year. But like, the point is, like, I reckon I've got that many caps for the 24th man. It's ridiculous, and we were having a good laugh about that. But like, just getting some footy is so important, because confidence comes from that. But then, like, more importantly, when they get that call up from the coaches or whatever, you don't feel like you have to prove anything. You can just do what you've been doing, like, week in, week out the last few weeks, and it's a much easier transition, I think. Well, I believe so.
Absolutely, 100%. It's when you're playing regularly, you do get that confidence, and you can not be playing and still have confidence, and there's some things you can do, but it's very difficult. But when you're playing all the time, you get into your groove, you get confident, and it then becomes a feeling. You're like, here, buddy, you have to pick me, because I'm that good. You know, when you're in your groove and you're just playing all the time, it's like, you should be in the team. You just, whereas if you're not playing at all, you're doubting yourself. You're like, geez, am I actually? Because you nearly do. What kind of player am I? I haven't been playing. So
yeah, exactly, 100%. It's easy to fall into that trap, eh?
yeah. And so for the rest of the season, is it kind of like if you're playing with is it Viadana you're gone to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good club. They used to be in the European Cups and stuff.
Yeah. I think there's a few of the teams in this top 10 team that were in the European Cups, but just get some minutes with them, and then I think they've got maybe 7 or 8 games left in the season. They finish at the same time as URC finishes anyway. So, and then obviously if injuries or whatever happen at Zebre, or they want to play me, then they can always call me back. So I'm still sort of linked with the two teams. So it's a good situation, and I'm lucky that I'm able to do that as well. Like, wherever I may go next year, like, it's important that I get some game time now, and I can put some footage together, or because it's a little bit harder. Obviously, it's good being in two URC teams the last couple of years, but it's hard when you haven't played any footy for a team to pick you up, I think.
Yeah, no, I get you 100%. And there'd be a good spot as well to play in that top 10 league, like and play week in, week out, even look next year, whatever happens. But like, I think, Italy's a cool place to play. And another thing, when I'm chatting to young players or working with players one-on-one, is you see it now, but a lot of, when I was growing up in Ireland, and when a lot of people grow up, they only see their pathway. So like, if you grow up in England, you just think about the English academy that's closest to you, or if you grow up in Ireland, you just think about Ireland. But then when your mind opens up to abroad, like Italy, France, like, there's so many professional teams in those two countries, and like semi-pro and stuff, and there's so much you can do. There's so much traveling you can do, and there's so many opportunities.
Yeah, 100%. Even like now, it's like a lot of boys my age that I knew back home that were going through the Brumbies Academy together. A lot of those boys and that didn't get contracted to the Brumbies are now playing like in Japan, whether it be like top league or the second league in Japan, and they're all going places with their footy now. I have any boys that playing in the States now. Like, it's there's a lot of different places that you can go to, and it's awesome what life can offer you as well. Like, not just footy, but the people you meet and the places you go. I think footy is quite unique as well. Like, everyone knows everyone, and what it offers you is quite special. So yeah, it's cool. We don't know where I'll go next, but we'll see. Just see where it takes me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting as well that, like, so when you're young and say like 18, 19, 20, you're trying to get into academy, trying to break into the first team of your team, like say the team you came through.
Yeah.
It's like, you really want to do that, obviously. But then if you don't do that, it's actually grand. Like you say, like, boys going to Japan, going to Italy, going to France, like, it's actually grand. It's actually, whereas I remember, used to think it was the end of the world, and then I have a younger brother who was involved with Connacht and then was let go, thought it was the end of the world, but then, like, he's in the States, he's drafted to play MLR this year. And like, there's actually, when you just go, oh, there's another avenue, and it's actually grand. And then the other thing is, what I think young players don't realize is that you can play for 2, 3, 4 years. You can get picked up in your mid-20s, 26, 27, and then play at the very, very top level for 4 or 5 years, I was
listening to the podcast that you did with Scott Farley, for example. It's That's amazing, eh?
Yeah.
It's just yeah, boys like you said, like young 20s, like doesn't mean anything. You can get picked up when you're a bit older. It's crazy.
Yeah.
100%.
No, it's
100%.
class. And so any plans for the summer, or are you just kind of taking it for the next few weeks and then what are you thinking?
Nah, so not quite sure yet. Just obviously got the family here. So my little sister's here, my parents are here at the moment. So just probably spend a bit of quality time with them. They came a few days ago, so they're here for a few weeks. Spend some quality time with them because I haven't seen them for quite a while. So yeah, that's probably my main focus, and then just playing some footy with this new club I'm at. And just see where it takes me. So the season finishes in April, and then I think obviously the World Cup's gonna start in September. So the season will probably be pushed back a little bit. So whether or not I go wherever I may be next and settle in there early, or whether I get back home and see some more of the family back home before next season. But just just enjoy the rest of the year here. Try and enjoy footy, and and just see where it takes me. But my main focus is just spending quality time with the family and making sure that they're all good. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Nice one. And then last one, but so with like when you were in Oz, you had an agent and then he like found Italy or found the club or whatever, found the opportunity. Is that like common? Say, you know, if you're playing first grade back home, you'll have an agent or you'll chat to someone or
Yeah, so I didn't have an agent, and then when I was playing some first grade footy, there was a guy that my old man actually coached years ago back in the Brumbies Academy, and he was playing some footy over in Italy as well, playing some top 10 rugby, which is the comp I'm playing in now, and he was at Treviso for a couple of years as well. And he's an Aussie guy, same situation as me, half Italian, and I got speaking to him about, because I was actually going to go over to Italy to play in the Italy under-20s. But then the head coach, I was actually a little bit too old. I think I was 21 at the time. He thought I was a year younger. So that was when I first messaged this guy about potentially getting over there and seeing what the footy was like in Italy. And he put me in contact with a guy, his mate, that was an agent who was also had a relationship with some teams in Italy and had been playing some footy over in Italy as well. So I was sort of talking with him. And as I said, like footy was one thing. But I probably should have spoken to him a little bit more about how I was actually feeling, and probably should have been a little bit more open and honest with that I wanted to as well, like experience living over the other side of the world, because I was looking for a little bit of a fresh start or something to like keep my mind focused towards. So I was speaking with him, and then he just called me one day and said that Treviso were interested in offering me a contract. So that's where it all started, and that's where it's led me to now. So yeah, it's pretty lucky looking back. Like, yeah, geez, like probably could have stopped playing rugby, to be honest, and then would have had to focus on studies or something. But I'm grateful for what I went through, and now I'm here, and hopefully I can help. I mean, not inspire, but just like talk to people, or if they want to get in contact with me, or because I try and put a few things on my Instagram here and now and then, just to speak a little bit about my personal journey and help other people that may think that what they're going through is going to define them or whatever it may be. But there's always a light at the end of the tunnel at some stage. But you'll look back one day and be grateful for what you went through. So it's brought me to where I am today. So as bad as it was, I'm grateful for what I experienced.
Great stuff. Man, no, fair play. And I just want to say hats off. It's incredible you just speaking about your experiences, because I know we talk about it, but it isn't very common. It's not done a lot. And when I was 18, 20 growing up, I never heard of any rugby player speak about mental health. And it was then in my mid-20s, 24-ish, when I had a rough time. But I know that me hearing other people was what initially helped me get out of it. It helped me see, oh, they had it too. Oh, they went through that. Oh, geez, this isn't the end of the world. Oh, and so I just want to say hats off. You just sharing your story, speaking about it is incredible, and it will help people, I know for a fact, and you never know who it'll help. And yeah, it's unreal. And if you're interested in sharing stuff on your Instagram, do. Like, I know once again that's not easy. It's
Yeah.
none of this is easy at the start, but no, fair play. It's unreal what you're doing.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate having the chat. Enjoyed it.
Cheers.